stuff, because it's by making stuff that's bad and then looking at it objectively and not just being in that mindset of, oh, everything I made is perfect and great and I'm so proud of it and I'm the best filmmaker ever. Like, no, put all that aside, make something that's bad, but honestly look at it objectively and try to figure out, how can I do this better?
What's going on, everybody? Rob Mabry here, writer, director, and producer of the Legend of El Chupacabra. I am your host for the Texas Indie Film Podcast, and today I have with me Avai D'Amico, a filmmaker here from San Antonio, I think, Avai? If I've got that right.
San Antonio.
Yeah, definitely a Texas guy, and we are going to talk independent filmmaking here in the Lone Star State. So, Avai, welcome. Great to have you on the show.
Thanks so much for having me, Rob.
Yeah, let's dive right in. We'll start with your origin story. Tell me a little bit about how Avai D'Amico became a filmmaker.
Yeah. I used to write, so I'd write stories that's similar to what I would read. I would read a lot of like sci-fi, spy thriller stuff. Space aliens and James Bond were like the things I thought was exciting. So I would write stories like that too. And then in high school, I got access to a camera and I took a video production elective, and I tried to get other students who were my friends to try to like act out characters in stories, but I was trying to write stories of like, a more realistic genre. So I'd write stories for like, we're teenagers doing shenanigans after school. That's the plot. Because that was more like believable.
So from there, kind of playing around with the camera in high school, like when did you get serious about filmmaking? How did that happen?
Yeah, I guess it definitely started as like I'm bored, I bet this would be a fun thing to do kind of thing. Mm-hmm. But I very quickly realized, oh, this is the most fun that I've ever had in my life doing anything. So I want to like not stop doing this. And at the time, I was working with, just my friends as the actors who were doing it either for school credit, if it was for like a school project video that I was doing, or like over the summer just for fun, I would want to do videos for fun. And then even like after school, like after finishing school and graduating and being a young adult, I still was making short films and trying to get people I knew to like play the characters. But it's a totally different shift. I guess I was trying to take it more and more seriously, but what I noticed is my friends were not taking it seriously at all, which is fine because it's like they have their own thing that they do. They're not trying to be actors. They're just like acting because we ask them to. So I was like, oh, I bet the next thing I could do to try to like step up my game is to find other people who actually want to make movies and try to take it more seriously and try to make something that's like objectively good. So I hung flyers on community bulletin boards at different coffee shops and things, and I said basically like, hey, if you want to make an indie movie with me, show up at the library at this meeting room at this day at this time. And I figured maybe 4 people would show up, and 16 people showed up. So I was like, oh, okay, we actually have enough people here that if we pool all of our resources and who has access to what, and so has this kind of car, and so has like an uncle who like works at the radio station and could like announce our casting call on air.
Oh, that's nice.
So, yeah.
Uncle at the radio station. I like that. Yeah.
So it was a lot of like combining our different things that we had access to and try to be like, how can we utilize all of these things to like make a short film, but try to like make it actually be a good movie at the end. And of course, for the first like 100 short films I made, they were all nonsense, or there were like glaring technical errors that I would never make today. But I didn't really know how much I didn't know until I started actually making movies. And even once I was like confident enough to try, oh, I'm going to do a feature film, a full-length real movie, not just like a short film, and try to like rent a theater and get it to play in a theater and stuff like that. Even my first 2 features that I like sort of organized or produced were just, I had so much fun making them but looking back, I'm like, wow, I'm so like lucky that anyone stuck it out through the whole production with me. I didn't know what I was doing, and I was so disorganized, and I was
Yeah.
figuring it out as I went. Um, but I did. Some of those people from my first couple movies like still are making movies with me now, and we just all like grew together, or they had enough patience that I would, or faith in me that I would figure it out and learn from my mistakes and get better each time. And I have, and I'm really proud of how far I've come. And I think if you'd told like me when I was starting out making short films with my friends, or even the friends that I made at the library who like wanted to do films, if you would have told me back then that I'd have like a bunch of features on different streaming platforms, I would probably not believe you. I'd be like, no, that's someone. So
Yeah.
it's really cool to see how far I've come.
Yeah, I strongly believe you'll never make a good movie until you make a bad movie, right? Like, it is a craft. It's got to be practiced. You have to learn. And I took a similar path too, right? Like, I didn't just go and make a feature film. I probably made, at least 20 short films. I was a big fan of the 48-hour film project, and have done that multiple years over the last 7 or so years in both San Antonio and Austin. But I had to build my skills up to the point where I felt like hey, I think I'm ready to take on a feature film. So what was it for you where you got to the point like, all right, enough of this short film stuff, it's time to make a feature?
I think it was actually doing a couple 48s was kind of a catalyst for me because I've heard that phrase like, "Oh, I'll try anything once," because you don't know if you like something or not unless you try it. And
Yeah.
I really adopted it. Oh, I'll try anything twice because there could have been like special circumstances the first time, and that's why I didn't have a good experience.
Yeah.
So I did the 48 2 years in a row, and I've never done a third one, and I don't plan to. But for me, it was just such a stressful experience, and I'm like, it's great to have something done and out because that's a big part of it. And I know for so many people, like I talk to all these people who go like the more traditional approach. I mean, filmmaking in itself is always not traditional. You're always like
Yeah.
finding a new way to do something because of some restriction or limitation.
Yep.
Um, but I know a lot of friends who like went to film school and are still in Los Angeles today, and they're like trying to work like trying to get their big break. And I've
Mm-hmm.
always been the make my own opportunities kind of person, um, and so I definitely knew I wanted to make movies, but I couldn't afford to go to film school. But I was like, I'm not going to let that stop me. I'll figure out how to make a movie anyway. Um, and in my experience doing the 48s, it was like, okay, it's great to have a bunch of people together and within just 2 days have a finished short film.
Yeah.
And I've seen there are even people who have squeezed like feature length movies out of 48s, which blows my mind. um but the I had such a stressful experience both years because it's like we're trying to crunch. And for me, it's not so much I don't do a film just to get a film out because I haven't done a film in a long time. I make films like every single month I'm working on a movie.
Yeah.
So for me personally, I see what a lot of people tell me what they like about 48s is something I just do on my own naturally all the time, which is make another movie. I'm always making another movie. So what for me personally, I wanted to try to make a better movie than the last movie I made. And for me, I just can't do that in 48 hours. I need more time. I'll
Yeah.
spend more than 48 hours just in pre-production before even picking up a light or a camera or anything. Um, so I definitely uh, I did a couple. It's not for me. I'd still go. I went to the TPR studio last at the end of last year, I think it was, for
Yeah. Yeah.
the screening for last year's 48s. And I saw some really incredible stuff. There are some people in San Antonio making a movie in just 48 hours that is really impressive that I'm like, wow, how'd they even pull that off? Um, but for me
Yep.
personally, I want to take my time.
Yeah, I gotcha. I love the 48. Like it's an adrenaline rush for me. Um, I was lucky enough to win last year in Austin's 48 with a film called Spare Me. And I also entered San Antonio's 48. Didn't win. That's fine because there were just a ton of like amazing, mind blowing films. And anyway, yeah, totally get it. Not for everybody, but for me, it's something that I really enjoy and just feel like, a lot of what I've learned about filmmaking was through the 48. So, um, I want to talk a little bit about your creative process. And, you know, I know that you've written, some of the films that you've done. So how do you take an idea, that you have? I guess first, how do you know that that idea is the idea to invest in, right? Because if you're going to write, especially a feature film, like you've got to have some confidence, that that idea is, good for the audience, that it is a marketable idea. So like, how do you sort of figure that out, and then where do you go from there?
Yeah. Yeah, that is something that's been something more in the forefront of like what I'm thinking about when I'm planning a production. And we actually like just wrapped, like literally this past weekend, we wrapped production on one. So I'm like, oh, what's next? Because, I give the footage to the editor and now it's like, okay, the editor says it's going to take 3 months or 6 months or 9 months. So like, I'm not just going to sit around doing nothing. I'm going to like start the next movie.
Yeah.
So, um, so I used to just kind of pick, oh, whatever script feels like it's done enough, because it's never done. It's art and it's subjective, and I can always find somewhere to improve. And I've had to train myself to not be a perfectionist so much. There are some specific things where, as I've really gotten into cinematography, so I will spend a lot more time perfecting the lighting and being really nitpicky about that, compared to like 10 years ago when I was making a short film. I'd be like, oh, okay, I can see their face. Let's just get them in focus and hit record. Um, so I'm a lot more detail oriented now,
Yeah.
trying to get every frame to look like, a real movie. So, but I found that I can't just take that approach to any script or even any genre and expect it to be successful. Because so far, the only thing I've proven multiple times is that making a full length movie is a great way for me to light all my money on fire. I have a lot of fun and I'm not going to stop.
Oh, it's
So,
so good at that, isn't it?
but it's like, so I'm at the point where I'm like, okay, this is I had a well, yeah, I mean, I was paying bills one month and I'm like, oh, my account doesn't quite have the right amount of money for the bills that I owe. So I need to maybe reevaluate my habits, and maybe I should not spend so much on feature movies that don't return anything.
Yeah.
Um, so I made a decision in 2022 to pivot from features to series. Because one thing that I've been thinking about for years is how do I get people? I'll make a movie and then no one will watch it, and I'm like, oh, maybe I need to make more movies because I know this guy I follow on YouTube, and he always opens his videos with like, oh, I'm so and so, and I make movies that make money, and I'm like, that's such a good intro. But I watch
Yeah.
his movies, and I'm like, well, he's got 200 movies, and I don't even know how to do this. Like Woody Allen used to put out a movie every year, and that's still like you could be 200 years old to like have 200 movies. So how is this person putting out so many movies? Um, and
Yeah,
also,
you're talking about Jason Horton, right?
yeah, that
Yeah.
is who I'm talking
I
about.
make movies that make money. Yeah. Yeah. Hi, I'm Rob Mabry. I make movies that don't seem to make any money.
Right?
It's not as good. Yeah.
No, no. So I'm
It's not
thinking
a
for
great hook.
movies, because I told people, I'd ask even my friends. I'm like, hey, have you seen my new movie? And they're like, no. And I'm like, dude, it's the only thing I've been posting about for 2 months. How have you not seen it yet? And they're like, it's 2 hours long, and I'm busy in the evening. I have children that I have to take care of, and by the time I finally get 2 hours to myself, I'm gonna like watch Disney because I know that I'm gonna be entertained and they have good performance. And I'm
Yeah.
like, okay, well, my actors are not famous, but they do act, they do give a good performance. But a lot of my friends are just like, well, I'm not willing to risk that. My time is really precious, and everyone's so busy. So I'm trying to think, okay, what can I do so I can keep filmmaking? Because I'm not going to stop filmmaking. Like even if I
Right.
go broke and homeless, like I'm going to keep filmmaking because that's like the thing that I want to do all the time.
Yep.
But how can I maybe not go broke doing films? And that's when I was like, okay, well, if I scale things down, because another like my Achilles heel is post production. I can write the movie. I can build the movie set. Um, I can film the whole thing, and then once I get the rough cut from the editor, I can do the sound design. I can do the color correction, but the actual piecing it all together and paying attention to the pacing and stuff like that is just that's I really need someone else to do that, because if I do it myself, I'm gonna have my own biases and blind spots, and I'm gonna put out a bad movie because I've done that before.
Hmm.
So I realized I really need someone else to head up post production and have that objective, fresh set of eyes. This works. This doesn't work. This will pace it better, and then actually get me something that's worth watching.
Yeah,
Um,
that's interesting. So for you, you don't edit your films. You have an editor, but you're doing sound design and color correction. Sounds like you probably have the technical skills to do the editing, but you don't trust yourself, or you just feel like there's more value in having that different set of eyes actually do the edit. Yeah.
yeah, I think really like the best analogy that I can think of, if I'm using that word right, is like I'm trying to not make. I never want to make Jar Jar Binks. I think like in the 70s, George Lucas was George Lucas, but it was 1970s George Lucas who was not a bajillionaire.
Yeah.
And like I would imagine that during the original Star Wars production, there were probably some checks and balances in place, and they just didn't give him a blank check to do whatever he wanted. But I think with the prequel trilogy, oh, the first trilogy was so successful, let's give you a blank check to do whatever you want. And then we end up with Jar Jar Binks. And it's like, what even is this? This is like ruining the movie. So I think having those other objective viewpoints and those other perspectives in place is really important, because I have edited my own movies. The worst movies I've ever made are ones where I edited them too. And I think having someone else to be able to say, "Hey, I see you wrote it this way, and you spent so much time doing all these takes to shoot it this way, but at the end of the day, as a full watchable movie, this is ruining the pacing, or it's ruining the emotion that we're trying to capture, or something like that, um, or there's something else about it that just doesn't quite work, and it's hard." And it's hard to have those conversations with editors, but I appreciate that, because I'll sleep on it and I'll wake up the next day and I'll be like, you know what, the editor was right. We got to cut that out, or we got to do it differently, or we got to get them into the action sooner and like cut this piece of backstory, even though we filmed a whole scene to explain it. Whatever the solution is, I think having that objective perspective is so important, because I don't want to put out a movie and then have the actors tell me like, "Oh, I'm really disappointed in how the movie came out." And I've had that conversation with actors,
Yeah.
and I actually recently had that conversation with two different actors, um, but in a way that made me feel really good, because they're like, "Oh, we like being on these other movies, and sometimes we'll see that you're the DP on someone else's movie, and we get excited, and we'll like, you know." apply to that casting call, but then that movie comes out and it's like we're not as proud of it, or we didn't have as good of an
Yeah.
experience as it when you just like do your own movie too. So there are other directors who I love working with in Austin and in San Antonio. Um, but there are also directors who it's like, oh, okay, I worked with them one time, but I don't really want to like do it again, because just we're not on the same page about where we want to go, like
Yeah.
artistic maybe. um and it's nice when an actor is like, man, I want you to make more movies because I like being in your movies. And that's really encouraging to me, because I worry about that. I worry sometimes, like, okay, I put out a movie, but are any of these people happy about it? Are they going to want to do another movie with me? So when I do a casting call or an audition, and an actor who I've already spent a lot of time on set with, when that actor applies again, then I'm like,
Yeah.
oh, okay, they must have had a good experience. Otherwise, why would they want to do another whole movie with me?
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah. For me on the editing side, like I edit everything that I do. It's one of my favorite parts of the process. Um, but, you know, pacing is super important. Making those hard decisions about what really is in service of the story is critical. When I did Chupacabra, like the rough cut was 2 hours long, you know, which is just ridiculous for an indie comedy. And I had to go back and like cut, 20 minutes out of the film, and it killed me. There was a kind of sea story, that we'd spent a lot of time on, and it was shot beautifully and it was funny, but it just didn't matter enough, right, to the core story. And I had to make a tough phone call to an actor, Chad Mundo. Hey, Chad, we're friends now, and he's a great guy. Like he understands how things work. But just to tell an actor like, hey, dude, you know the 3 days you spent, on set and all the great work that you did, it's got to go. Yeah, not a lot of fun, but yeah, those are the choices that you've got to make, right? Like it's all in service to the story, and sometimes it's not easy, but it's best for the audience. So
yeah, that's exactly what I'm talking about.
yeah, so tell me a little bit about your Texas connections. This is the Texas Indie Film podcast. So just in terms of you personally, and then your filmmaking, like what does Texas mean to you as a filmmaker?
I love Texas. I love filming in Texas. One thing I've made films in several different states, five I think. Um, and one thing I really like about Texas is just the enthusiasm that everyone has. Everyone I meet, they want to get on board. They want to help however they can, and whether they're interested in filmmaking and that's how I met them, or if it's about like filming in a location or something. Um, I have been building my own sets for larger projects because I still find it difficult to, like, if I want to make a series ongoing, set in a coffee shop or a bar, and I've outlined 4 seasons, I have to have a conversation with the bar owner about, hey, how how many days can you be closed for this production? Because we have like drunk people tripping over the light
Yeah.
stand.
How many
Um,
times can we come in at 3 o'clock in the morning and
But what I
and
found is if your ask is just, oh, we need a day to film one scene for one production, people are very open.
yeah,
Sometimes you get the people who are like, oh, okay, it'll cost this many hundreds of dollars. And then I'm like, okay, thank you, but no
cool,
thank
man.
you. I'll go somewhere else where
Yeah,
they don't want to charge me that. Um, and in Texas, there are plenty of places we've found where people are just like, "Oh, wait, you want to film a scene for your movie or TV show in my establishment? That sounds great. Can you put our logo in the movie too?" And we're like, "Okay, yeah. Just so you know, someone's getting murdered here. So do you want them to get murdered in front of your logo? Okay. Sometimes they say yes, sometimes they say no.
yeah,
Um, but whatever they want to do, we're happy to put their logo in or whatever, because we want someone to watch the movie. That's the whole, we're not just making it so no one will watch it. We want people to watch this and see the performance and see the story and get emotionally connected to the characters. And then also, of course, we want to promote the people who are helping us. So if someone's letting us film in their business, we'll be happy to put their logo in the movie too, and then they can say, "Oh yeah, we're the bar or restaurant that was featured in that episode of that crime drama on Tubi," or whatever.
yep.
So it's cool.
Yeah, I've definitely had the generally the experience of kind of Southern hospitality. Texas, I think, is a friendly state. People tend to be very accommodating, and so um, yeah, generally I think this is a place where you can have a good experience. when you're trying to find locations to film. Um, what would you say is the worst thing about filming in Texas?
Okay. The worst thing about filming in Texas is you meet this actor and you love working together and you're like, great, I have so many scripts where I could like adapt the character to so this actor would like give me a perfect performance and I'm excited about making like 6 movies with this actor. But then after we make a movie or two, they move to Los Angeles or they move to Atlanta. And it's like, no, now I have to find another person. And then it happens again and they move to Los Angeles or they move to Atlanta. And it's like I want people who are good. Like it's I on the one side, of course, I'm happy for their career. Go to LA, get all the paid roles in NCIS or whatever show is on its
Yeah.
15th iteration by now. Um, I fully support that. But I wish those shows were in Texas so they wouldn't have to move away. Because sure, go be your paid, get the bills paid by having a guest appearance on the new CSI. But then that weekend, when you're not doing anything and you as an actor want a bigger role and the Hollywood people aren't putting you as the lead of something, come be the lead in my indie thing filming in San Antonio. And then after we're wrapped on that, go get the bills paid on CSI again or something like that. So that's
Yeah.
been, I wish more, I wish there was more bigger productions happening here to incentivize the talented people to stay in Texas.
Gotcha. That is a great answer, Avi, but it's incorrect. Actually, the answer is the heat. The
Oh, okay.
heat is the
Well,
worst thing about filming in
I
Texas.
actually, I don't think that's so much of a problem for me because I have this air conditioned soundproof
Yeah.
studio that I'm in.
Oh, good for you. No, very, very cool. And I hope I can come and check that out at some point. But
Yeah,
um,
I do.
no,
I do
it's
schedule on our last production. We did intentionally schedule it so we got all the exteriors first before May came,
yeah,
and then we would wrap with just we were like, okay, great, we don't have to go outside anymore. No matter how hot it gets, all the rest of the production is air conditioned.
yeah. It is the second week of May. Wednesday, it's going to be 106 degrees outside. That is a downside of filming in Texas. But it's interesting what you were talking about. Like, um, I think you'd agree. Like, it's really gratifying, to see people who've worked on your little indie films, right? Go off and actually become working actors and
Yeah.
go to Los Angeles. Like that's one of the joys to me of being a filmmaker. Um, there is a shift. It seems with more film productions coming to Texas. They're building a big studio in Texas. Um, and so maybe that changes to a degree, and you get what you're hoping for, right? Where these guys can be available, to you on the weekends for your projects. But I'm curious, like, have you been following that at all? Do you think that the potential for Austin to become the next Hollywood is of any benefit for indie filmmakers?
I guess my like instinct answer is no, I have not been following it very closely. But at the same side, on the other side of that is like at the same time, I know other people. I probably follow it more closely than most Texans, but it's just because I'm like doing filmmaking. So if
Yeah,
there's a film related thing, so I guess I'm more aware of it than most people. But within the film industry, I don't really pay too much attention because I know, and I've lived in other states where they've also tried to do like state incentives, and none of the states I've lived in, anything like that's actually happened. It's
right.
all just been like, oh, we talk about it, but then it never goes anywhere. Um,
Yeah, and it's like generally, at least for me, in terms of when those incentives kick in, in terms of a dollar figure, like it's, you know, it's $300,000, right? Like it's way beyond anything that I would do in terms of a budget for a feature film. So,
And
you know,
I think as far as the incentives go, like I know it's about money, it's about the local economy. My productions are not keeping like San Antonio small businesses going. My production, because I'll film a production here and I'll cast local people.
yeah,
So I'm giving local cast and local crew opportunities, but they already live here. So they're not spending money on a hotel, they're not getting a rental car, stuff like that. So I understand the incentives, the main primary effect of the incentives is to get Hollywood to come here. So then the Hollywood actors have to stay in a hotel and the Hollywood actors need a car service or something. And I understand that.
yeah,
But I think like there is a lot of indirect benefit because yeah, the laundromats. Okay, well, all the Hollywood movies are here, and the wardrobe departments need their stuff cleaned, so that's giving business to a laundromat. And then
yep.
another indirect effect is me is okay. You're wrapped. Well, come film with me, and I'll put you in a starring role, even though you're just like background or a small character in a guest episode on a
Yeah.
soap opera or something that's filming here for a season like 1923 or something.
Yeah. So let's talk a little bit about your films. You've released, I think, two films in 2024: A Tuesday Wedding, and then A Question of Guilt. One was a rom com, you know, comedy, family movie. I don't know if you characterize it as that, but
Yeah, I mean it's
and then you,
G-rated. I would say it's G-rated. We didn't like pay for whatever to get the official rating, but there's
gotcha.
definitely nothing offensive in A Tuesday Wedding.
Okay, and then you did A Question of Guilt, which is a crime drama, like pretty different genres.
Oh, definitely.
So I'm curious. Like me, I'm a comedy guy. That's pretty much all I do, at least when it comes to my own personal projects. So why did you choose those genres? What appealed to you about this?
So I chose the genre for A Question of Guilt because I wrote the screenplay. So I had been trying to do I'd been I'm always trying to like figure out how can I do things better? How can I learn from a previous production? And one thing out of the bajillion things I've learned, one thing is I learned I don't want to make a new social media page every single movie because you start out with zero followers again. Um, and it was just I felt like I was spending too much time doing social media, and in reality, I want to spend zero time doing social media. I want to not have to worry about it. I want someone else to do it. Um, so I was like, okay, instead of making an individual page like I did for A Tuesday Wedding, what if I make a page for like an anthology, and then I make a bunch of stuff in the same genre or explore different subgenres.
Yeah.
Um, and so I was thinking, well, what is something that I can make a lot of? And it's like, okay, well, crime drama, murder mystery, detectives, stuff like that. Um, so I made an anthology page, and then I started making multiple productions that were sort of like thematically or similar genre. And that way I'm like, okay, now I can have 1,000 followers on this page, and I can just use the same page to push each production that's kind of crimey or mysterious.
Hmm.
So I started doing that. And then with the Tuesday Wedding, um, a friend of mine wrote that screenplay, and he had been trying to sell it for like a decade, and it wouldn't sell. No one would buy it. And he was like, hey, I really want this to be a movie. So if I just give you the script, would you just turn it into a movie just because it needs to be a movie and no one will buy it? And I'm
Hmm.
like, okay, yeah, I'll consider, like, no promises because it's a wedding movie. So we have to do all the logistics of planning a wedding and all the logistics of planning a movie.
Yeah.
It's like twice as much work. So so one actor who we'd made a few short films together, and she also acted in A Question of Guilt. she was like, hey, I want to get more involved and help out on like the producing side or something. Is there something that you're trying to tackle that you need help with? And I'm like, well, I just got this script for a wedding movie, but it's got all these locations that I don't have, like a bakery and a dress shop, and like we would need wardrobe, we would need suits and dresses for the bridal party,
Yeah.
um, and then the bachelorette party scene. Like, there's just all this stuff that I don't have. So here's a list of locations, and I guess if you can find all these locations, we can try to make this movie happen. And I didn't expect to hear back from her, uh, you know, because I knew it was like a challenging task. But
Yeah,
like
you wouldn't have heard back from me, that's for
right,
sure.
right, right.
Yeah. Hey
But like
man,
a week or
that's
2 weeks
cool.
later, she was
Good luck
like,
to
"Oh,
you, sir.
I found them all. What's next?" And I'm like, "There's
Wow.
you found them all already? Like, what do you? I guess what's next is like we try to schedule this out and cast it." So we ended up making a Tuesday Wedding, and we sent it around to different festivals. And I was targeting like festivals in like wine country, thinking like, yeah, chilling out with a comedy about planning a wedding, and
Yeah.
you know there's all those interactions between the bride and her mother as they like pick out a dress and try to finalize the details and do cake tasting and stuff like that. So I was like, okay, maybe this would be a good selection for like wine country festivals where people are sipping wine and enjoying a nice fun movie with some luxurious elements. um,
Mm-hmm.
and we got almost unanimously rejected from every festival that we submitted to, which was crushing because I'm like, from an artistic standpoint and from like a technical standpoint, I think A Tuesday Wedding is one of my stronger movies. Definitely at the time it came out, I think it was my strongest work. Um,
Yeah,
and it,
I'm surprised because it looked terrific, right? And had solid performances and um, it can definitely be hit or miss with film festivals, right? In terms of what gets in there, and I think their programming concepts in terms of the blocks, the themed blocks that they want to do, play into their decision making. But yeah, to hear that it was not well received, that's surprising to me. But
yeah, yeah, and I think genre. So like that experience kind of, because I have other rom-com scripts that I wrote myself, and I have not filmed them. I would like to someday, but they're just, they're in a folder and I'm not looking at them right now because I'm at this stage where I'm like, I can't afford to make a rom-com right now. I can't afford to because it's not going to
yeah,
make me my money back.
yeah. So when you're when you're writing or when you're developing a project, how much are you kind of thinking in that indie filmmaker mindset of these are the things that are available to me, like these are the locations, these are the props? How much does that play into your approach
It
in
plays
terms
in,
of
it plays
developing a
in
project?
when I start writing, like before I start actually writing, I write for specific locations. So I used to write, for anything. When I was writing my spy thrillers or whatever, I'd write anything that I don't have access to. Once I started actually trying to make movies more seriously and try to make movies that looked like they maybe had $1 million budget and were a Hollywood movie, even though it's just me and my friends,
Yeah,
um, at that stage is when I started really focusing on like, I need to write for what I have access to. What are my resources? What locations do I have? And I'm not going to write a bank robbery script because I don't have a Wells Fargo. And then, uh, believe it or not, that didn't work in my favor exactly because I got a Wells Fargo for 3 days that was closed for remodeling. And they're like, we already moved all the money and the sensitive client information and the computers. We moved all that out because we had to have it cleared so the construction crew could come in and remodel.
yeah.
But the construction company is not coming in until Monday. So do you want to film something before Monday? And I'm like Monday, like this coming next Monday? And
Yeah,
they're like, yeah, you could film like Friday, Saturday, Sunday. And I'm like, okay, yes. But then I thought to myself at the same time, and I didn't say this out loud, is like, I never wrote a bank robbery script because I would have said that's a waste of my effort. Like, I'm not
right.
going to spend energy writing a thing I can't actually film. So now it's like I can film a bank robbery, but I don't have a script for it. So we
Uh,
filmed just the robbery itself. And then we got a couple dialogue scenes in the bank with like a detective interviewing a bank employee the next day and a customer coming in and asking a teller like, "Oh, I heard you guys got robbed yesterday. Is my money safe? How does that work?" So we had a
mhm.
couple dialogue scenes to kind of support the robbery, but we mainly just focused on filming a bank robbery. And then we watched all the footage and then we wrote a script around what we were able to film,
Oh,
and then we
wow.
filmed the rest of it after
Uh,
having
uh,
already filmed the
uh,
robbery.
was that a short?
It's an episode, so it's still
Okay.
with an editor. A guy in Dallas is cutting it right now, um,
Okay.
and it'll
That
be an
that
episode of my anthology series where we have a bank robbery episode, but then the assistant branch manager turns up dead the next day, so it becomes this murder mystery.
ah that is a very interesting approach that I don't know that I've ever heard before. Like, randomly film something because you have the location. Okay, now let me write the story around what I shot. That's wild.
It makes everything a lot harder, and it makes it much more complicated to stay organized. Um, but when I read the copy of this, so when I gave the footage to an editor, I of course give them a script also. So by the time I finally had a complete script to give to the editor, I read the script and I'm like, yeah, it's a little disjointed here and there because of we couldn't go back to that location and film another scene.
Yeah.
So it's a little disjointed at moments, but overall, I think it's a story. It's got a beginning, middle, and an end, and there's action. There's some exciting scenes. So I'm really curious to see the end result. And it's definitely not I've definitely made other movies that were less organized, um, and those worked out, I suppose. So we'll see. But yeah, I've been for the past few years now, I've been focusing on like what can I do that ends up around half an hour, 25, 35 minutes.
Gotcha. So tell me a little bit about like what's an Avai D'Amico set like, and as a director, what's your philosophy?
Yeah, I like a crew of four. Um, I don't know any other directors who like a crew of four. I know people who try to have bigger crews, but yeah, I think um, I definitely like directing and shooting simultaneously because I think it saves a lot of time on a I've worked, and even some of my own movies I've had really big sets with a full size crew. Um, and that's a good way to just light a bunch of money on fire. Um, but you have all these people, and I notice when you get too many people who aren't like engaged all the time, they'll start like side conversations, and now suddenly is distracting someone who's not doing anything right now, is taking this opportunity to
Yeah.
distract someone who should be doing something right now, and now we're behind schedule. But if you only have four people, no one has time for a conversation because there's always something that's not being done. So it's like, okay, you finished that. Well, now you can do this.
Yeah.
So, but I think like if I am shooting myself and I get someone doing sound and I get someone helping with lighting, and then we have someone to simultaneously, it's usually the same person, will do the slate and the script supervisor, because that way they know the numbers are the same because they're the one writing down the numbers.
Yep.
And you're once I've said action, you know, the person on slate doesn't have anything to do the rest of the scene until I
That's
say cut. So during that time, now they can be the script supervisor during the take, and then
yeah.
they'll do the slate again for the next take. So I like a crew of four, which is pretty lean, but we still work really, really quickly because I've even been on full size crews, and typically, if you have a full crew, I found it takes about 2 hours to get through a page. So if we have 4 hours or 4 pages rather, it's going to take us 8 hours to shoot those 4 pages with a full crew.
Mhm.
If we have a crew of four, we can shoot those 4 pages in 4 hours, sometimes even 3 hours if the actors are really off book. And it's just that we're moving so fast. And
Yeah.
and when I'm shooting myself, when I like working with the DP sometimes as a director, and I also really enjoy being a cinematographer who works with someone else being the director. because you can have two brains and focus more on just one thing.
Mm-hmm.
But what I find is when I'm doing both simultaneously, I'm just a few feet away from the actor whose performance I'm really caring about. And I'm not really too much of like a medium, like, normal human field of vision kind of filmmaker. I
Yeah.
see a lot of people who are like, oh yeah, shoot it realistic, put a like 25 or a 50 on a gimbal and shoot it like head level. And I just don't like that look because that's what I see with my eyes all day long. So I like to shoot my wides super wide. I'll use like a 10 millimeter or a 12 millimeter. And then I like to shoot tight. I'll go 85 millimeter or 135 millimeter on my close-ups. So it's a huge change from my wide shot to establish the setting and then go super tight into this emotion. And what I like about that is when I'm getting the close up, that's where I'll spend more time. On the wide, the actor's mouth is only 4 pixels, so I care less about their performance being like 100%.
Hmm.
Give me 90% because I can't see you that well anyway. And
Yeah.
then on the close up, that's where I want 100%, and that's where I will give them this note. And we'll might be in the middle of a take, and I'll just whisper a note to the actor, and they'll just pause, and they'll take it back, and they'll do it again with my note. And it saves so much time compared to waiting, letting them finish, calling cut, reslating, going for another take to get me that moment. If we can just keep rolling, and I just whisper them that note, and then they do it again, and we move on. Now we got it in that take, and we're saving so much time. And after having some of my actors go on to work on Hallmark and Lifetime movies, I stay in touch with them and I chat about like, oh, how does like those sets compare to mine? Uh, like Hallmark, a couple friends have told me Hallmark never even does second takes. You get one take, and whatever you do, that's the take that's going in the movie. And because if you do two takes, now the movie costs twice as much because you're suddenly doing everything twice.
That's a surprise. Yeah. Yeah, there's definitely something to be said for being nimble, on a film set. And, when I did Chupacabra, we had a really large, cast, and that made it expensive. I do think, a lot of the quality of the film, came from that commitment to really having people who understood, the craft and their different roles. But, it does become this giant machine, and keeping all of the gears, moving in unison becomes really, really difficult. And, for an indie film director where, you're not just worrying about, the direction of actors, right? You're worried about the camera, you're worried about the lighting, but you're also worried about, oh, these people need to get fed, and is that happening? And is craft services taken care of? Like, it just sort of can become very overwhelming when you've got a lot of people on set. And so yeah, I think for me, as I look towards the next feature project that I will do, it will be significantly scaled down because I've got to get the cost down. I've got to find a way to get a return on my investment. And yeah, you just have to move faster, right? And when you've got a giant crew, like, it can be a tremendous experience, but it also comes with its own set of complications for sure.
Yeah.
So you talked a little bit about working with actors. What advice would you give to somebody who's fairly new, taking on the role of a director in terms of getting the best performance you can out of your talent?
I think it really, like, casting is what's going to make or break you. I think, unless you, well, I guess if you're a director who's asking this question, you're probably not a director who's experienced enough to like just teach your actors how to act.
Yeah.
Um, but also, you don't really want to have to do that. You don't want to put yourself through that, especially not on set. Maybe during rehearsals, if you can meet one on one or meet with two actors who have a lot of scenes together and really rehearse and try to teach them. Um, but otherwise, I aim for as best as possible. I try to cast someone in a role where I'm setting them up for the most success for themselves personally by just choosing the right person for the right role. So I'm not going to put someone in a role where I'm like, oh, they're going to have a really difficult time believably portraying this character. But if it's someone who I've never worked with before, I'll ask them, hey, can you send me clips of like other stuff that you've done before, or other auditions that you've done for other directors, just so I can get a better sense of how believable are you in different sorts of situations. If are you funny, but you can't do like something serious? Because I know actors who can do comedy well, but you try to make them be serious, and I just don't believe you because something about the way you behave just makes it funny when it's not supposed to be, or
Yeah.
vice versa. There are some people who they can do a serious role really well, but you try to make them do something that's more lighthearted or something, and it's just awkward. So a big part of it is if you can try to get enough material from your people who you're considering to make sure that when you offer them a role, you're offering them a role that they can actually excel in that role, or at least do it believably. And then you just have to worry about your specific asks as a director. Oh, I'd really like you to do this line this specific way because of this reason. It comes back around later in another scene or something like that. Um, and and yeah, I think just casting, you can solve so many headaches by casting someone who you know, oh, I'm not going to have to worry about them so much. And sometimes you still get surprises. Sometimes I cast two actors together and they're scene partners, and then one of them or both of them come to me separately and they're like, "Oh, I don't really get along with so and so so well." And I'm like, "Cool. Well, you're going to have to for 2 days."
Hey,
2 days.
tough shit. No,
So there's stuff comes up.
yeah, I love what you said there. I think if you can nail casting, that's like half the battle, right? Get the right person for the role. Invest in that because it's going to pay dividends down the line for sure. And something I prided myself on, really trying to make sure that I've got the right actor for the role. It just makes your job as a director so much easier for sure.
Absolutely.
Yeah. So what would be, I guess, the one piece of advice that you wish that you had gotten early on in your filmmaking adventure that you might want to share with us?
I guess generally speaking, all of my what's like a best advice that I've gotten has been stuff that like I heard and it was the right advice, but it's just easier said than done. Um, like overcoming writer's block, for example, people are like, oh, well, you just have to get the pages out. Just get the pages out. Okay, it's easy to say that sentence, just get the pages out. But actually, writing 90 pages is hard.
Yeah.
And for me, I guess this can apply to any aspect of filmmaking or performing arts or maybe anything in life, period. If you can get out of that mindset of, oh, this has to be perfect from the beginning. I'm a perfectionist. I want to do something good. I want to do something well. Just if you can put that aside, it really is the best advice I can give you. And it's the advice people give me. Turn your editor brain off when you're writing. Just write, even if it's crap, clean it up later. If you're shooting it, just shoot stuff. Because if you're not shooting stuff all the time, you're never going to get better. You're not going to have your own work to critique. You can watch other people's movies and say, oh, okay, I'm a good cinematographer because I only watch, insert famous cinematographer here. Well, if you only watch, you know, you can only watch good movies and then pick up a camera and film something that's lit poorly if you don't know,
Yeah.
how to actually light it. So I think if you can turn your perfectionism off and just get out there and make something, you don't even have to show anyone. Make something with yourself. Do you have a cat? Do you have a house plant? Your house plant can be your actor. Put it on a table, light it, shoot it, put it somewhere else in the house, light it, shoot it, like just play with it, make stuff, because it's by making stuff that's bad and then looking at it objectively and not just being in that mindset of, oh, everything I made is perfect and great and I'm so proud of it and I'm the best filmmaker ever. Like, no, put all that aside, make something that's bad, but honestly look at it objectively and try to figure out, how can I do this better? What could I have done differently to improve it? Whether it's writing or lighting or capturing sound, like what can you do? How, when you're working with a director, if you're or when you're working with an actor as a director, are you giving them, what kind of notes are you giving them? And are they the notes that actor's really, does it mean the same thing to the actor that it means to you? Or are you guys not on the same page?
Yeah.
And you really just have to make a bunch of stuff and work with a bunch of different people and get on a bunch of sets and explore different genres. And it's through the process of making a whole bunch of stuff that I've learned, what do I like making? How do I like working? What kind of actors do I like working with? What kind of crew do I like working with? How do I like running a set? All of that. There's so many ways to make your movie. You just got to make a lot of movies before you even know what really works for you.
Man, I hope everybody was listening and hearing that, because those are really two pieces of advice that I give to people. In terms of writing, like, I had to learn to turn off that editor, right, in my brain. Like, I would write something, I'd start writing something. The next time I wrote, I'd read, oh, what did I write? Part of that was like, oh, look at me, I'm so fantastic, I've written these words. And, the other part was, oh, let me go and start fixing this, right? And I just wouldn't make the progress that I needed to. Eventually I learned, write the biggest piece of shit that you can write, but finish it,
Yes.
because once you're done, then you can go back and start to polish it and edit it and make it what it needs to be. And then, as a filmmaker, yes, get out there, make a terrible, movie, but just do it and keep doing it. And eventually you're going to get better, and you're going to get to a point where you can really be proud of it. But I meet so many people who are waiting for, the planets to align and, to achieve perfection, so they can do this project, that is never actually going to happen, right? Because they just don't have the courage to, to make mistakes and fail and get it done. So appreciate that, my friend. Tell us, how can we support you as an indie filmmaker? How do we follow you? What do you want us to go and watch? Tell us.
Awesome. Well, my newest thing to hit streaming, I think, is a Question of Guilt. It's a murder mystery. It's adapted from a classic novel, but it's of course got a different title. But I don't want people to guess the ending. You just have to watch the movie, and then you'll know.
I did watch it. I didn't realize that it was an adaptation of a novel.
Yeah.
Yeah, very cool.
So I've made more. The majority of the things, especially lately, doing series, it's easier in a sense because I only have to make something 25 minutes, not 95 minutes. But then it also, like, well, we can't release it because it's a 3-episode season or a 4-episode season, so we've got to wait for all the episodes to come out. But I have several movies on different platforms. A lot of them on Tubi and Fossum and Mubi, where you can watch stuff for free with ads. And I also have stuff on Amazon where you can rent it to watch it without ads, I think, or unless they're still showing you ads even though you rent stuff now.
Look, sit through the ads, watch it on Tubi, right? That's where indie filmmakers make their money. So
we have an ongoing crowdfunding initiative for if you go to akindofmystery.com, we're sponsored by a 501c3 nonprofit. So the crowdfunding that we do, if you're the sort of person or business who can benefit from a tax write-off, whatever money you donate to our production, you can count that against your federal taxes. So if you owe $100 on your federal taxes, if you donate $100 to our crowdfunding so we can get the movies made, now when you do your taxes, you'll owe $0 federally on your taxes.
It's a tax write-off, baby.
Yep. So kindofmystery.com if you can benefit from a tax write-off, or if you just want to throw down $25 or something to have your name in a special thanks credit. We're always trying to fundraise so we can get more movies made and get them through post-production, because that's, the part that I absolutely have to outsource, and it's always a pain point. But otherwise, yeah, just watching our movies, because we make these movies and then people aren't watching them. So definitely go watch A Question of Guilt. It's on most streaming services. It's on Apple TV also, which I didn't mention until right now, I think. And then, yeah, this year we should have 2 series, which will each be multiple episodes. 2 series should be streaming by the end of this year.
And what are the names of those series?
I would like to not answer that, because we have
All right.
4 series in post, and I'm pretty confident which 2 right now are going to be the first 2 that'll come out.
Okay.
But things change. Things change, because there's stuff when you're relying on other people to be your editors. There's a lot that's not in my control. I don't have the power to make something actually happen when someone tells me it's going to happen. Sometimes stuff takes longer. So
that is the truth. Well, once that decision is made, and maybe you get to the point where those series are out, you can come back on and talk about that and tell us how it goes.
Thank you.
Yeah, cool. Avai, been really cool to have you on. Appreciate you making the time. My name is Rob Mabry. I am an independent filmmaker here in San Antonio, Texas. This is the Texas Indie Film Podcast. Have a great day.
That's it for this week's episode of the Texas Indie Film Podcast. Don't forget to follow, like, and comment. And if you're a filmmaker from the Lone Star State and you'd like to be a guest on the show, contact Texas Indie Film on Facebook, Instagram, or email at texasindiefilm@gmail.com.